Plants vs Zombies. You all know what it is, don't lie. We've all played it at some point or another. But what is it? It's a tower defence game that focuses on the defence side. But it was not afraid to get weird and wacky, especially with a concept like plants versus zombies. I mean, you can't get weird than that, can you? You can. I mean, you can try, but you can't. But what made the franchise so special was it was odd, and by odd I mean very odd. And it was an interesting franchise because it holds a special place in literally everyone's hearts, except for Rishi Sunak because he couldn't afford it, just because he couldn't have he couldn't have Sky TV either. Sorry, laughing at my own joke. I feel stupid now. But Plants vs Zombies is one of the most iconic games out there. Originally releasing in, I think it was 2009, it released to critical acclaim and soon released a sequel. But in this video I'll be going over the downfall of the franchise. What made it so good at the start and what made it so crap later on. But the reasoning for this is money. Not an overabundance of it, but not an underabundance of it. That's not a word. But it was the greed that EA had. I don't even know the word, and I'm doing really well in English. But the problem with it is it became less and less recognisable as Plants vs Zombies and more recognisable as Plants vs Goblins. You know about Plants vs Zombies and you know about Plants vs Goblins. We all know about those two franchises. We've all attempted to play Plants vs Goblins. We all know it was awful. But the problem is the original game was just that good. The footage used in this video, before we get started, is all done by me. So if I seem more distracted later on, it's because I typically have something on in the background. Specifically for the Plants vs Zombies 3 section, because that game is so boring, I literally had to have Ryan Tran on in the background. But without further ado, let's have a look at what made the franchise so terrible at the moment. Plants vs Zombies 1 is probably the most iconic game from 2009. What do you mean that Minecraft was released that year? This is the reason that it was so popular. There was not much else offered in mobile and PC gaming at the time. The closest thing to a big PC game was, I don't really know, it was released at that time. I think Call of Duty 1 was out, and maybe Medal of Honor? I really don't know. But Plants vs Zombies, it was interesting, it was new. Tower defence games were not really existent back then. Sounds old now. Because it is old. In fact, it is one of the pioneers of video games, period. And while it did release many sequels, none of them, except for Garden Warfare 2, which I shall not be talking about because I can't get footage of that on my phone. But it released many sequels, none of them were as good as the original. With that, I say, the original, it was a good game. It's special. It was big. It was amazing. And will its sequel stand the test of time? Well, we'll just have to find out in a moment. Plants vs Zombies 2. You know it, you love it. While it may not be as downright a good game as the original, that is only in the same vein as saying Halo 4 isn't as good as Halo 3, because fundamentally they're the same game, but it's the overall quality of the game that's different. The problem with Plants vs. Zombies 2 is EA. Yes, EA. The company known for ruining... Well, I just broke something. Moving on. The company known for making game franchises terrible, Battlefield, it is also known for making sequel after sequel after sequel with microtransaction after microtransaction after microtransaction, and you get the point. The problem with Plants vs. Zombies 2, though, is it isn't a bad game. In fact, it's a good game. The only problem is it's held up to the standard of just how perfect the original game is. The original game is perfection. This game is, well, in video game analogies, the first one is Red Dead Redemption 2. The sequel is the first game. I think I may have made the wrong analogy. Or in new Doctor Who TV show terms, the first game is Season 4 with Donna and David Tennant working really well off each other. And the second game is Season 1. It was great, but not as good as the original. Right, I think I may just be absolutely messing up my analogies. Anyway, moving on from that point, the game became more microtransaction focused, with you being able to spend £5. Yeah, £5 or $8 I think it is, for a plant in-game. Some of which aren't even that good. In fact, most of which aren't even that good. But why? Why did they do this? Well, it was EA. Money, in the words of Mr. Krabs. But the problem is it's a good game, is the problem. But EA just made it so focused on money that it would just sink into obscurity. And the amount of ads, if you're playing on phone like I was, is ludicrous. The problem with the game, though, is that it just couldn't be held up to the impossible standard that the first game sets. That is the problem with Plants vs. Zombies 2. That and the whole problem, I keep saying problem a lot, but, well, there was a lot of problems. It felt like a company saw what was new and successful and thought, let's make that, but do it our way. And it was kind of rubbish. And we don't really talk about it. Except if you look on the community now, this is one of the biggest games out there. In, like, the whole franchise. It is probably the biggest at the moment, but it just could not be as good as the original. Everyone cites it as a good game, but they never say it's a good game when compared to the original, when compared to the other. And the sad reality is no, it isn't. And that's the harsh truth. It may be a bit tougher to swallow, but you got to get to grips with it. It may not be as good. A game can still be not as good, but a game can be good, but not as good. People nowadays seem to forget that. With games like Fallout 76 and Fallout 76 not being as good as, say, Fallout 4 or New Vegas. They just say it's a bad game instead of saying, is it good when compared to the original? Is it bad when compared to the original? Is it a good game but just bad in the franchise? And that's the weird category that Plants vs Zombies 2 falls into. With that, we go on to the final part in this video, the game that I consider to be actually bad. Plants vs Zombies 3. Plants vs Zombies 3. You've seen the videos on YouTube, they're all saying it's rubbish, but is it actually? Well, looking by the footage being played on screen by me while I was watching Ryan Trahan, no, it's not a good game, it is bad, and the levels are tiny. Levels are about 30 seconds long, and you can't see it, but the large amount of microtransactions being offered is ludicrous. And it's EA that's making it worse. The new cartoony art style, it doesn't fit the original vision. Everything feels like a company trying to make the game, but failing miserably. Everything about the game feels like a shadow of the original franchise. But what makes it so bad? Well, for one, you can't pick your own plant, which was a huge part of the original games. 2, there's no mini-games, there's no arena like there was in the second. 3, they completely changed up the design. I mean, if you look at it, one lawnmower instead of one in every lane, which can screw you over. 4, was it 3? Oh no, I've lost count already. The Grapes of Wrath. While it is an incredible name, they suck tremendously. It takes 2 to kill a single zombie. That is just bad. But this is the death of a once loved franchise. It's the death of a franchise that has helped so many people along their careers. And the sad reality is the original creator was sadly fired after speaking out against EA's money-based programming thing. He was fired for saying that he wanted his vision to stay the same. And with that, I leave you on that sad, bitter note. Goodbye.